comes from?
Thank you. My name is Margaret. I wanted to address the question to Mr. Hartsuyker. Is it your intention to, in the interest of free speech, to allow journalists to visit Manus Island, as the Labor Party have indicated that they intend to do? Good question.
And each answer is for 2 minutes, event.
There we go. Look, there is the government's proposal. There will be no changes to the current arrangements that exist that have been so successful in stopping the vote. I mean, we had a situation where we had 50,000 people arrive by boat, 1,200 people tragically killed at sea. We have not had a boat arrival for around almost 2 years. We have not had dinner run. We have not had a death at sea over that time. It is a tragedy to see people losing their lives, attempting to get to this country, and regrettably, if the people smugglers believe that they can make a profit out of putting people's lives at risk, they will do that. The government's policy has been absolutely successful in stopping the evil people smuggling trade, and we will stand by those policies that have worked so well.
Thank you. If there are any of the other candidates that particularly want to answer the question, then you can do so, but try and keep it to the minimum, because we have a lot of people asking questions. Carol?
I think we're all on this one. Sorry, questions and matters.
Right. As far as the Greens are concerned,
It's not on camera.
as far as the Greens are concerned, we have to do something, get those children out of Manus. We have to close the concentration camps, and we have to have a policy that puts far more money into processing people through UNHCR closer to where they are leaving, so that and then if they're processed closer to that point, they won't get on boats, and then we'll bring them here by plane. Because I think we've got to bring up the compassion, and we've got to stop the cruelty, and the Greens won't stand for this cruelty to continue.
Anybody else? Yes?
Yeah, we're all on.
Hello. I'd just like to say, before World War II, there was millions of refugees moving about. We need to stop wars going on around the world, stop regime change, and stop refugees. They want to stay home. So that's where we've got to take the top-down approach and stop these wars now.
Thanks for that. When I was in politics, I was there when there was some shocking losses of life off Christmas Island, and I do think it changed the mood within the Parliament and amongst the politicians. So I can understand, in a way, where the Liberal National Party has ended up, but I want to say that I fundamentally disagree with both the moral direction and the inability to see there is a better, more efficient way and a more moral way to achieve better processing and more structure around the movement of people in the Asia Pacific. Indefinite detention is in breach of international law.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Australia is a poor global citizen if we are in breach of international law. So if we can play this game and we can pretend this is the only way. We can snub our nose at international law. We can pretend Cambodia was a success, not a failure, because it's the only signatory in the Refugee Convention. But the truth is, Manus and Nauru are in breach of international law, and Cambodia was a failure. Before, when I was in Parliament, we spent a lot of time promoting something called the Bali process. It is a regional forum that is relevant to our region. It involves the 40 Asia Pacific countries. It involves the International Office of Migration. It involves UNHCR. It involves the Red Cross. Australia and Indonesia are co-chair of that body. It is not only about the movement of refugees, it is also about the more insidious trade of human trafficking, including the sex trade. It is about the movement of money and drugs and guns. We can find a better way to engage our neighbours and work on a more sensible, moral and economic approach to this question, rather than playing what I consider to be quite a xenophobic, asbestos-stirring, dividing approach to appealing to the lowest common denominator in the hearts of all of us.
Thank Rob for that. That was beautiful, and that's the truth of it. We're breaking international law. Australians are law-abiding, clever people. We don't want to do that. They're human beings. I don't even like the terms that some of us are using. They are human beings that we are locking up, and that's not a good Australian value. We don't do that. We do way better than that, and we need to be able to assist wherever we can. I'll just give you a little thing. I get all my information from the people that come and chat to me. There was a group of Muslims that came and see me in front of Woolies last night after our speech that was there. We started chatting what I was doing. They gave me some insight into the fear scenario that we keep on getting. Fear, and there is a horrible fear there. The Sikh history back 500-600 years ago, we were fighting that fear, the horror part. Everybody has a little rotten egg part of our characters, I suppose, or our society. They said to me that the infidel, or the person that they are preaching about, and I'm speaking about Muslim people, sorry, this is all part of them, that the infidel lock up their people, the infidels will lock up the people and treat them bad. And guess what we're doing? We're locking up anybody that comes over here and treating them bad. I don't think that's really clever. What will happen out of that is they won't like us, the people. All of the people in here won't like us. Think about what we do. Think about, sorry, I hope I don't offend anybody. Think about Jesus. What did he do? He did not differ between people. He walked with the people, among the people. Think about where we all come from. Where do our values? How did we build this country? We built it with a group of people that came from all over the world, and we worked together, and that's what we need to do. Let's not lock children up. Let's not lock any people up. Let's be clever. I wonder what would happen if the government offered, I think we spent $400,000 on per person that we're locking up. I wonder what would happen if the government said, here's $100,000 to the people in Cowper if they wanted billet somebody from there. And let's work together, neighbourhood watch, work that system. I wonder what would happen. Grab it. There you go.
Thank you, John. I would love to think that every one of these questions could be answered by all 5 candidates, but if it's 2 minutes per candidate, 5 candidates, it's 10 minutes per question. We're not going to get all these questions through. So if you could nominate the person that you would like to answer the question, and if any of them insist, or any others insist on doing it, please do so, but please try and refrain from it if you can.
Thank you. I actually have 2 very short questions. My first one is to the sitting member, Mr. Hartsuyker. I noticed in your glossy piece of paper that I got out of my letterbox today that 3 out of the 4 schools in the old Cowper electorate that you have provided funding for were private schools. I'm wanting to ask if your opinion is the same as the Prime Minister's, that you should stop funding public schools.
Good question.
And my second question is to all of you, if I'm permitted. I would like to hear all of your opinion on the move to have legislation on voluntary medically assisted dying.
Yes.
Hello. In relation to education funding, with regards to government schools, the state governments are the primary funder of government schools, and they certainly receive significant assistance from the federal government through general tax collections to do that. The federal government tends to provide funding for the non-government sector. We are supporters of a quality education system where young people get education that they need to succeed in life, and that's certainly very much my position, very much the position of the Nationals and the government. With regards to the assisted dying legislation, it is very difficult to comment on legislation until it actually appears in the Parliament, so certainly I would like to see the actual form of the legislation that is proposed.
Please be
Right,
brief.
in 2013, I campaigned very strongly with Kate Vernon, who was then a Senate candidate on the platform of Dying with Dignity. And the Greens are real supporters of Dying with Dignity. And although we say that there should be strong and good quality palliative care, all manner of things, we say that the family should be involved, etc., etc., etc. We still have people dying in a way that you would never call dignified. And I always worry about the people who don't have family, the people who find themselves alone at the end of their lives, and they have nobody to negotiate how the decisions they might want to make about the way they die. We lost a friend a couple of years ago who was in that position, and the part that was very, very poor there was that she had made the decision and then something went wrong, and her mates who were left couldn't make any decision about what was going to happen. She ended up in a hospital for quite a period of time. So it really brought it home to me that we need this legislation, and we don't have a right to say that we will judge how somebody will be towards the end of their life. And if we make the decisions now, I think that dignity is the key question to it.
Thank you, Carol. Are there any other people who want to speak on that question as briefly as possible? Thank you.
Just briefly. On a personal level, I do believe in voluntary systems, but I do worry in England. They have legislation that is very murky, where in England, the more funding to the more numbers that die, and that does worry me.
Very quickly, I believe in equality of life and equality of death. I do think we've got some excellent palliative care services locally, and we should be very proud of that. I also think the GP is central to the quality of death journey, and it can be done in a way where, under the Hippocratic Oath of do no harm, in a sensible, caring and loving way with family and friends, the right medical network can provide support for that process. So my initial reaction is a preference for that without legislation. But if there is a push from the community that a want for legislation to define it in law is there, I'd be very careful about, unintended consequences is the wrong word, but I'd be very sensitive to the edges of legislation like that. So it would have to look right under law, and I think that's sharing a similar point to what Luke just made, is it's very difficult without seeing legislation in detail to then take the next step. But the preference would certainly be to have caring GPs with a strong palliative care service, working with family and friends to provide that quality throughout both life and death.
And very quickly, the question of whether I'd support that. If I was in Parliament and there was a bill about dying with dignity, I would support that. Yes, I would. And that's because in Australia, I think something like 72% of people are wishing for that bill to happen. Therefore, it's my duty as their elected member to listen to them and make that happen. And of course, I'd check it out really carefully.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Our next question is from this gentleman here, and but maybe I'll just suggest, could you make sure you only ask one question, because you've got a lot of people to ask questions.
Paul's my name. Minister Hunt assures the nation that he will attain the Coalition's emission reduction targets in 2020 and beyond. My question is, are our CO2 emissions actually falling, or is Mr Hunt achieving these targets in large part by buying overseas emission credits?
Yes.
Who was the question to?
Luke.
To Luke Cowper.
Sorry.
Okay, well, look, thank you for the question, and I can say that we have signed the Paris Climate Agreement, and we gave a commitment to reduce our emissions by 28% by 2030, based on 2005 levels, which is a very, very significant commitment. In doing that, we will be reducing per capita emissions by some 52%. That places us second with regards to G20 countries with regards to the commitment to reduce emissions. So we are making some very significant commitments there, and certainly we are doing our share of the heavy lifting to ensure that the issue of climate change is addressed, and we have a range of policies also to support that. So, thank
you. Nobody else, so I'll go to the next question. Oh, the next question. Next question from this gentleman.
My name's Tom, and I spoke to Damien. He apologises. When you're in a public service job like he is, and I was for 50 years with Office Commission and County Councils, and you just can't down tools and take off. When you're in that position.
Question,
right, huh?
Question.
Well, that's my apology. My question is to Luke. Kempsey Airport's been upgraded. Julia Gillard promised $150,000 to put a new fence around the airport. When you and the cohorts got into power, you stopped that. Now, what's happened? An aircraft hit a kangaroo on landing. He sued the council for $90,000, smashed his propeller, smashed his fuel tank. Now, if that had been a flying doctor's going out, we haven't got a heliport at Kempsey Hospital anymore. There's 5 aircraft fly out of there for Chinese students.
Just ask a question. Because you're out of time.
Right. Now we've got 200 students coming. Are you going to give that $150,000 back?
Oh.
That's the question. You're going to give that money back?
Good, thanks.
Okay, well, I was at the airport quite some months ago, and we actually officially opened a range of improvements to the airport that were driven by council. The project was managed by council, the priorities determined by council, and using federal funds. We have got an airline, a training airline, that's going to bring 200 students to the airport. They certainly appear to have great faith in Kempsey as a place from which to operate their activities. It's a great announcement for the local area that's going to create jobs and opportunities and bring a lot of people to Kempsey, which is really an exciting development. Kempsey have not approached me. I talked to Kempsey Council and Mayor Liz Campbell and the councillors and the General Manager of Kempsey Council on a very regular basis. In fact, I've spoken to Mayor Liz Campbell a couple of times already this week on a range of matters, and the issue of the fence for the airport hasn't been raised with me. It hasn't been identified as a priority by council, who's the manager of the airport, but if they were to do so, I'd certainly look at what I can do as a federal member to assist.
You put lives at risk.
That's very good.
Can I have an answer?
Yes, you can. Brief answer.
Look, there does look to be a bit of a game about airports going on at the moment. There was 1.25 pledged to Port Macquarie Airport last week. Isn't political competition wonderful? Only a month before, or a couple of months before, a $2.5 million application by Port Council was rejected. So that is political competition at work. It would have been nice because it was just a money pledge to pledge the whole complete job, so we could get on with it. I think that's a really important point about safety at the local airports in the local area. $19 million has gone into the 3 airports of Tara Airport and Kempsey since 2010. And I can tell you on day one, you know, we're telling personal stories tonight. On day one of the campaign, when I thought I'd be racing around everywhere, I was sitting out at the airport because a family member had had a home renovation accident, and we used the Royal Flying Doctor Service to get to Newcastle Hospital. Thankfully, the system worked, the hospital's wonderful, and the Royal Flying Doctor Service, I thank them dearly. We've got to make sure that service can work and work well, because that's our access to the major emergency hospitals, both in Newcastle and Sydney. So it has been raised, and I don't mind if it's not raised by a councillor. That'll be pursued if elected.
Thank you.
Just as my councillor hat on, it's the same colour actually, but it's good. Councils are really interesting systems. But just to answer that question, it demonstrates, not answer, just a highlight on that question, that demonstrates a regional electorate just missing out. And what are we missing out on? The safety of the people. It just demonstrates again that we need the funds to make this electorate better.
That's good. Our next question.
I would like to hear the views on the panel of a Federal ICAC looking into political corruption in terms of donations and transparency of those donations.
I want to know their views.
I can do that really quickly.
The whole panel.
Yeah, sorry, I had the mic there.
Just very briefly.
I have on my banner integrity. That's a really lovely word, and it's very important. Integrity across the board. I think we have to have a federal ICAC, and I'll just demonstrate why. We're not allowed. Government people are not allowed to have funds given to them by themselves, sort of stuff. There's this problem here that the governing body has. Everybody's allowed to get $2,500, I think it is, for their information technology for their computers and whatnot. Just check this out. This is interesting. So you only need $500 to get get all the software and what you need, but they're donating $2,500 to a company that might be linked to that political party, and then that political party is donating money back to the political. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely corruption. ICAC on the federal level will put it just like all of us people, that we have to be accountable. You have to be accountable. You must have a federal ICAC in place. And if I get into government, I think we'll make sure we do.
When I left politics, I was sitting in the kitchen getting pretty cranky, I imagine like everyone else, as a response to some of the issues I was seeing and the reform inertia that comes from big dollars buying bad policy. I put a petition on a vase, which it was the era of royal commissions. I said we should have a royal commission into political donations. Yeah. It was about 4,000 signatures in 24 hours. I was just doing it to vent some steam. But I actually think it is at the heart of why Australia does have reform inertia. We do live in a time where democracy is being privatised, and I don't use the word lightly. I also think it's being corrupted. It is in politicians' best interests more than anyone else to put in place sensible integrity measures. There'd be 11 members of the Liberal Party in New South Wales still in Parliament if we had sensible integrity measures. The Premier of New South Wales might still have his job, Barry O'Farrell. You know, the Obedes and the Joe Tripodi have been in the paper during the week. They might actually still be involved in public life, or wouldn't be, if there were sensible integrity measures. There is big dollars floating around the corridors of Canberra. Donation laws kick in. You only have to declare them at $13,000. And everyone in this room will not know who gave what money to whom and why until February 2018. That is disgraceful. And we do need to improve the laws around donations and the integrity of the system. Otherwise, it's busted.
Look, I'll be very quick. I have the smallest political budget in history. Big business have an agenda with these donations. When you sort out who owns big business, it always goes back to the banks, the alpha banks of the world. They need to be stopped.
Well, I think we have a regime of donation laws, and certainly my political party complies with those laws to the letter. And certainly as a member of Parliament, I would certainly comply with those laws, and if the Parliament were to change those laws and regulations, or we would comply with those new amended laws and regulations.
The Greens have called for a federal ICAC on 3 different occasions, and both the big parties have voted it down. But the Greens keep putting it up. Now we've got the federal parliament going after the A, B, B, C, C, D, D, whatever it is. That is one union. And so that's the whole reason why we're going to this double dissolution, and they won't have a federal ICAC. Doesn't make sense. We have got a program where we're calling on, that we call dirty politics, and we say we've got to be very careful that we don't say that because the fossil fuel industry is millions of dollars to both the big parties, that then they get any reward, because we can't actually follow the line directly. But when you look at the amount of money given, guess what? For every dollar that's given over there, there's $2,000 in subsidies over there.
Yeah.
Now, we can't link the two, but we can think, can't we?
Thank you, candidates. Our next question comes from this gentleman.
Thanks. My name's Phil. I'm a proud public school teacher.
Yay!
Now, I have a very direct, simple question. I'm asking each candidate to declare whether they support the genuine student needs-based funding, including the disability allowances and loadings for students of whom 80% or 75% attend public schools. For our area, that means $31 million less unless we get what we call the full Gonski. So I'm asking each candidate to declare briefly yes, no, and also very briefly why or why not.
And could each of
first.
those, each of the candidates, could, since it's, there's so many people waiting, could you limit the answers to 1 minute each, please?
Really easy for me. Yes, 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 because I'm an educator. That's it. Always.
Okay, well, you know, I'm delighted to inform the room again that education funding is at record levels, $73.6 billion over 4 years, and it's going up each and every year. And we're absolutely committed to a high quality education system. That's why in the budget we had $1.2 billion to improve schools. And we have seen over the years, since the late 80s, funding, enrolments went up by some 18%, funding in real terms has gone up by 100%. And I was interested in the words of David Gonski just recently, where he said that needs-based funding is what I pushed for, and that's what we have. And so the federal government is delivering on what was asked for by Mr. Gonski. We are committed to ensuring that we have a quality education system. We're committed to ensuring that young people get the education that they want. And that's why we have the Student First program that focuses on a number of things. It focuses on teacher quality, it focuses on parent engagement, it focuses on the autonomy of the school to make local decisions, and it focuses on a stronger curriculum, which are important elements as much as money is in ensuring that we have a high quality education system that's going to deliver the outcomes for our children.
Yes, I believe Gonski does not go far enough. Our children should aspire to be the next Einstein and learn the art of discovery, not just be taught to. Only a national government-run bank can fund these projects.
The answer very clearly is yes. The answer to the question why, very simply, 3-word slogan, because it matters.
My answer is yes as well, full Gonski, and the reason why is that all children in Australia need to be fairly educated so that we can build this nation of ours with educated people and we can all contribute. So yes.
Thank you.
It's almost like Cowper's got talent. My answer is yes. Next question.
Harry Creamer, Port Macquarie. Mr. Hartsuyker, in view of the Eddie Maguire incident, I did think about asking you what the National Party position is on violence towards women. given that just 5 years ago Barnaby Joyce and Fiona Nash were part of an angry crowd in front of placards that said "Ditch the bitch"? Or a question about your time as Assistant Minister in charge of vocational education system, an ongoing shambles. But you're lucky. It's my duty to ask about climate change. Do you accept that climate change is real and dangerous, that it's caused by burning fossil fuels and destroying forests, and what is the National Party doing about it? How does direct action work? Why is it not working? And please don't give us the rote answer about the government's emissions targets, because it's all talk and no action. Tell us what you're doing now. And finally, what is the Coalition's 2030 renewable energy target? I say again, renewable energy target for 2030.
I thought all that applause was for me for a moment. Look, with regards to your preamble in relation to the VET system, during the time that I was Vocational Education and Training Minister, we put in place measures to clean up the mess that we inherited, where we had a situation where vet fee help was racing out of control. It increased from 299 million in 2012 up to 3 billion in 2015, and was heading higher this year. So we put in place systems to protect students, to protect taxpayers, and we certainly put in place a range of measures to run the road providers out of business. And we did that in only a few months when I was Minister. So we put in place a range of measures to protect the taxpayer and protect students. With regards to climate change, as I said, we have certainly signed the Paris Climate Change Agreement. We're on track to meet our targets.
Don't repeat yourself, we've heard that answer.
We have a very ambitious target of some 28% by 2030, based on 2005. Time up?
What's the renewable energy target for 2030?
Well, I'm being told by one of my time's up.
No, what's the renewable energy target for 2030?
Your time's up!
He doesn't have an answer. He doesn't know the answer.
That's his slogan, his time's up.
Very well.
That's the 3 words.
The next,
his time's up.
Our next question. Is this all the people that want to ask questions? That's right. Okay, that's fine.
That's a great
We should have just about enough time. We have another half an hour to go.
Luke Hartsuyker saying his time's up. My name's Mick. I've got a question for Luke Hartsuyker. We know the northern part of the Barrier Reef is dying. We've seen the pictures. And at risk is, from an economic point of view, is an estimated tourism revenue value of $5 billion a year and 64,000 jobs a year. What is your plan to effectively limit the carbon emissions that cause the warming and acidification of the ocean waters that are the major cause of damage to the reef?
Okay, well, with regards to the Paris Climate Change Agreement, I've given you those details. We do have a $2.5 billion emissions reduction fund, which aims to fund projects that are going to reduce our emissions. We also have the National Energy Productivity Plan, which aims to reduce ozone depleting gases and certainly to support investment in technologies, new technologies such as solar storage. We're doubling the renewable energy target over the next 4 years to 23% by 2020. And we have the $1 billion Clean Energy Innovation Fund. So we've got some significant policy measures in place. I've already said to you previously with regards to the targets and our progress towards those targets. And we are doing our fair share of the heavy lifting to address the issue of climate change and address the issue of CO2 emissions.
Okay. Our next question.
Thank you. I'd like to put it to the sitting National member. With the Liberals and the Nationals in a coalition...
Hold the mic closer to your mouth.
With the Liberals and the Nationals in a coalition, is it true that in a 3-quartered contest, where the Libs, the Nats and the Labor are in. The Liberals are putting Labor ahead of the Nationals. If this is so, does it mean that the Liberals would rather have the Labor Party in coalition than the Nationals? If this is true, why should people vote for the Nationals?
No, I don't believe your statement is true. The Liberal Party has the National Party as its coalition partner and has no intention of, if I'm understanding your question correctly, and no intention of forming a coalition with the Labor Party.
Down in Victoria, in the seat that Sophie Mirabella used to be, they are putting Labor second because they don't want the Nationals to take their votes.
No, she's an intense.
Right. Okay, that question's been asked and answered. Next question.
My name's Nadine. My question is for Rob. What is your position on opening new coal mines or new coal seam gas wells, please?
Thanks, and I don't know whether the Hastings Climate Action Group card has been circulated yet. Has that the comparison of all the different parties?
It's gone out.
It has gone out, okay. Because there's I think 7 markers of performance, and I'm glad you picked up. That's the one where I've got a cross. I wish, and I've raised this with the group, that I could put a little asterisk in the top of the box, because it's probably the old lawyer coming out in me that I would much rather work on, and this will sound like planning law jargon, the inputs rather than the outputs. I would much rather have to have communities divided and fighting land releases and mining trucks coming to a certain area or wells being put in, such as down in Gloucester. I would rather win the fight through the inputs, so through the planning process. And I think there is tightening of planning laws that can be done. There is something that I've felt over time should be written more into law around externalities. Currently in the planning process, companies can factor out certain things, the full life cycle of a product. I think they need to be brought in both to the planning process, but also into the decision making and the economics of the businesses themselves. And if we can get more of that happening, it's going to knock out any mining or coal seam gas or any fossil fuel-based interests. It'll also open up opportunities for renewables to transition quicker because they'll rise to the top. So it was more about the wording of the document where the word moratorium was used. In theory, I get the point of wanting less of fossil fuel-based mines and coal seam gas and more of a transition to renewables. It's the way we get there, and I think the focus for me is more on those planning laws.
Just very quickly, I think coal needs to stay in the ground. That's the best place for it, because that's how it is. If we spend more money on renewable energies, that's a clever thing to do, and that will save the planet, and it'll still create jobs and still bring the economy that we need to move forward. I speak 3 languages. There's a big mining company up north. I might be able to have a chat with them and see what they can do. You never know.
Can you pass the microphone
Mine's
on to
just
Carol?
a 3-word slogan: no new coal, and coal seam gas has never been proven to be, the fracking has never been proven to be safe, so no amount of paint that can ever save that. So mine's just no new coal.
Okay, we'll move on to our next question then.
Good, thank you. My name's Tom and I'm a retiree. I'm sorry I'm the only one in uniform tonight. I'd like to put my question to 2 of the candidates who I believe are most involved in this situation. We've had a change in electoral boundaries and we have 2 large towns now, if not cities, competing for a lot of things. First of all, funds. Secondly, in the economic sense, jobs with tourism, with healthcare and with aged care. I would like to know how these two competing situations are going to be brought together and be successful.
Right, that's probably something we most of you will probably want to have a brief answer to that question.
Yeah. Well, I'll start out. Look, I think that the inclusion of Coffs Harbour and Port Macquarie in the one electorate provides exciting prospects. There's obviously some competitive tension between two large regional cities, but they're both great places to live, and they both have, I think, the potential to grow strongly into the future. The reality is that funding is not allocated, except for some small programs. Funding is not allocated on an electorate by electorate basis in some sort of robotic fashion. Funding follows the needs and the growth. And with Coffs Harbour and Port Macquarie in the one electorate, we're going to be a very dynamic, growing electorate. And we will have the prospect of attracting large amounts of funds. And I think that it's an exciting prospect. Being in a region that is growing strongly is a great place to be. If you go to some communities, you're seeing population decline, you're seeing businesses close, you're seeing services leave the area. What we have in our region is we have people coming to our area, we have new services being offered, we have excellent health services, we have great schools, and that's a function of the growth in our region. And I think that the benefits of having a very strong growing electorate outweigh, I think, any competitive tension that may exist. As I said, there are some small programs that are allocated on electorate by electorate basis, but most electorates are broadly, and the aim of the Electoral Commission is to have all of the electorates exactly the same number, and in an ideal world that's what they would do, and you would have pretty much exactly one vote, one value. But I think that we've got great prospects, and the new electorate of Cowper will be an exciting place to live.
Right. When we first looked at the redistribution, one of the first things that occurred to me was that any representative of Cowper has a bit of a job to do in making the whole of the electorate feel that it is one unit, because at the moment it feels quite divided. And as you move around, you can feel, there is the competition, and so I think there's quite a job to do for people to realise that as one unit, it is of great value, and it can demand more from federal funding and federal resources because of that. Now, we happen to have one of the highest numbers of, highest populations in our electorate, because I went through, because I'm always trying to work out how many votes I'll get if I get sort of, 53% and all that sort of thing. And we've got 117,000 people in Cowper, and most of the others have got between 106 and 112. So I go, well, there you go, there's an extra 5,000 people, but I think that's going to be an enormous job for anybody who becomes our representative. Instead of going Port Macquarie versus Coffs Harbour, we're going to have to get everybody together to say, what do we want? What are the commonalities? What are the strengths we've got? When you look at it, we've got two different universities coming forward and being funded more. We've got some really valuable things across the whole of Cowper. Now, I've been travelling around Cowper now since 2013, and I know what we need, but we also need to celebrate and unite together instead of having the competition. We can be very, very strong and demand a lot from Canberra.
Yes, with all due respect to the question, I believe not only Cowper, but all Australians deserve a better living standard. Only a top-down approach can do this. We've got to stop letting statistics bamboozle us and work to get all Australia's living standard better. Stop austerity.
Right, so the Australian Electoral Commission said it was a less than optimal outcome for our region. I think it's, layman's terms, we got shafted. I'd encourage anyone who feels strongly about it to read the submissions from party headquarters, because it'll be very interesting for you to see who supported the position we've landed in. You might find some surprises. now, you know, that's the past. This is the way it is, and we've got to make it work. I think there'll be natural tensions still. I've still got scars on my body from football days. They were the hardest games up the coast. And I think, you know, there'll always be tensions between local councils and local businesses fighting over limited resources. I also think probably state members will be quite competitive up and down the coast, and that's natural. It really is a big responsibility of whoever is the next Member of Parliament for this seat to try and find a way to culturally bring Coffs Harbour and Port Macquarie and everywhere in between closer together. And in the time that I've travelled up and down the coast since standing, I've actually been quite surprised how much family connection there is between the communities, how much business interest there is between the communities, and how much business relation and how much public sector connection there is, like the health networks are intimately connected. And so I think that's where the entry point is for the next Member of Parliament, is to try and do those broader jobs plans, broader health plans, broader tourism plans, and really try and change the culture and get more than two communities working together as a consequence of getting some unity, whilst also accepting it's like the state of origin tonight. You know, there'll always be those moments where people hook into each other. Can I very quickly say, as a practical example, because the Eddie Maguire comment was made, violence against women, the AFL community on the Mid-North Coast is going to respond on the weekend in a good way. In town is a game between the Port Macquarie Magpies and the Sawtell Taormina Saints. They are both going to get behind promoting a message the complete opposite of what Eddie Maguire promoted. And I think that's a fantastic example of our community as a region responding. And I hope we can all support that sort of approach in a very practical way.
I think it's going to be a challenge. However, let's look at the similarities between the two cities, and you'll find that a lot of the areas, as my council in Coffs Harbour City Council there, we're expecting an influx of senior citizens coming to our area. I know that's the same in Port Macquarie, so look for the similarities, make it marginal in this area, and the funds will flow towards here. And things like the needs that are required for these senior citizens that are arriving here, these people have worked all their lives, they put investment money into banks, and now the interest rates have fallen down. We need to be conscious of the needs that they're struggling to do, and those needs will be the same across the region. We can make the centrepiece a functioning, productive, food-producing area that'll feed both of the cities across that way, and we can create the jobs with the regional area there so that our youth will stay in our area. Education facilities across here, Southern Cross University, and we need to promote all of those education facilities so our youth are catered for. I think it'll be easier than we think, because we're all the same in this area. And just think about the other push, the whole of the region. New England, if that seat becomes an independent seat, this one and Page will have a region that are requiring the similar sorts of things, and that we all require to be functioning human beings here. We can do it because we can work together on it.
Thank you. Well, it looks like we have two more questions and all the answers to fit in the next 15 minutes. We are pretty much on track. Next question.
Hello, Drewsy Meggett. I'm an ABC friend, and I know there's several ABC friends in the audience tonight. And the ABC is very important to me. When I had two small children, I was several hours away from extended family, and the ABC kept me sane. So the May 2016 federal budget has indicated that further cuts will be made to the ABC, and not only does that affect the whole of the ABC, but it's particularly important here in rural and regional Australia. So I ask all the candidates what you would promise in funding for the ABC, and I hope to hear that you support our wonderful national institution.
Start after this area.
John.
This is an education question for our nation. The ABC and other such wonderful arts and cultural knowledge building tools are essential for this nation. We need to have intelligent, informed people in here. So we need to keep the funding up for ABC and any other, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit lost for English term here. We also need, like I'm thinking the CSIRO, that's a wonderful, wonderful thing that makes us intelligent, gives us information. My job as a city councillor is to get information and make good decisions. I can see that the ABC is an important tool to make sure that we all are informed and bright and offer that to all of us. And any other educational thing, we need to fund that.
Look, I think Michael Spooner should have a job for life and pay more. And that's only because he's up the back of the room. Look, I think the time now for a public broadcaster, the argument is stronger than ever. The media is in a state of disruption, it is fragmenting, and it is getting centralised in the hands of a few, and increasingly covering issues for profit or not covering issues because it costs money to do so. So the role of a public broadcaster in providing diversity in the market and also providing stories from regions like ours, I think is really, really important. In fact, not only just returning funding to its current state, I think there's an opportunity to crank it a gear. I've always thought, and I've said this to the guys, I nearly said guys, I'm not allowed to say that anymore. The guys at the ABC, I hope you don't mind, Governor. They really should be multimedia hubs. And the ability to chase stories that feed in nationally and globally from regions like ours, that's the outlet for our stories to be told. And with a good internet, we can sell our story to the world. And I think that's an exciting opportunity and not something to be feared.
I also believe in the ABC, I believe in community television and radio, which is getting cut. I don't believe in cuts in any form, across the board anywhere. My worry is promises made at elections are always taken away twice-fold.
Yeah, I'm a supporter of the ABC, and I think it plays an important role. If you look at the media landscape, there's very much a move towards very much broad brush national stories and a demise of localism with a lot of media outlets. And I think that the ABC plays an important role in ensuring that we retain localism. And Rob talked about stories from our region. But I think people really want to know what is happening at the end of their street, in their town, in their community, and what it means for them, and what perhaps a national story, what the local implications are. And I think that if you look at those media platforms that are surviving into the long term, they'll be the ones that meet the needs of community. And I think local communities are always going to have a local content, or want local content that is relevant to them. And I think the ABC plays an important role in providing that. And other areas such as emergency service response. I mean, if we didn't have the ABC, you wouldn't be able to get. I mean, yeah, there'll be some information available on the internet, whether that is granular enough for a lot of local communities, in particular to a particular river or creek or whatever, it's limited. But with the ABC service, it really does come into its own when you have that situation of emergency response.
Better stop cutting it then.
Right, a couple of weeks ago, the Greens announced a very comprehensive policy to support arts and culture going forward. And part of that is to totally support a broad brush of the media, including fully support for the ABC and for SBS community radio. I think if we don't have, the more we concentrate media in the hands of the few media moguls, the poorer we become, because it's always refreshing when you go overseas to come home and watch television here and know that you've got a much better mix, and it's mainly because of the ABC. And when you get that news on the loop that you see in overseas countries, it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's just a joke. And if we get to that stage, then I think it's the best way to dumb us down that there possibly is, when we concentrate our media with the lowest common denominator. And that's what's happening. We've got to have the ABC.
We have our final question here, and you have a question too? Because we have 7 minutes more to go.
I'll make mine short and sweet. My name's Michael Carlton, a Port Macquarie local. I like to consider myself a Port Macquarie local. I have also lived in the Coffs Harbour and also further north up the coast. One of the major platform speeches that we're hearing is jobs and growth. I'm a huge believer in jobs and growth. However, a decentralisation of jobs will provide growth for regional areas. No ifs, no buts about that. Approximately 2 years ago, NEC, a major electronics company, announced a $25 million investment into Wollongong itself. Where and how, with the $25 million regional job supporting program, which for this North Coast area goes from Lismore to Foster, so it's not just Page and Cowper, it also includes our southern neighbours. Where and when will this start, and who are some of the ticket items that we have ready? Thanks, Luke.
Okay, well the aim of the jobs plan is to do a number of things. $25 million. It requires, and there are no organisations or whatever slated to receive funding at this point in time. It's a program that businesses can apply for. It is a program that local government can apply for. The aim, there are a number of aims. One is to provide financial assistance for firms to move from a metropolitan area to a regional area, but also in relation to creating jobs. We want to grow the firms that we already have. So for those firms, we would like to expand, but there is a financial barrier to that expansion. The program could also assist there. In relation to local government, if perhaps there was some piece of infrastructure that was preventing land being available for use for a major employer, then a local government authority, for example, may be able to apply and seek funding under the program. It would be a competitive process, and I agree with you that there is so much that we can do in the regions, and a decentralisation of a lot of activities in metropolitan areas can have massive benefits from a national economy point of view, because I think that the competitive advantage of regional Australia is very much underestimated, and we can play a much larger role in the national economy going forward. We can do so many things efficiently. We've got a Centrelink call centre here in Port Macquarie. We have one in Coffs Harbour. They are producing great results, great outcomes, and producing jobs in the regions. That is win-win. And a program such as the Jobs and Investment Program can assist getting some great firms into the regions and growing our great local firms.
May I just have a quick good news story? Egypt has just finished about a year ago building the second Suez Canal. They've done it in 3 years. They've done it with national banking and government bonds. The Prime Minister at the time, imagine our Prime Minister saying, anyone under 40 who hasn't got a job has now got a job. It can be done here.
Okay, we have one last question. Please, Chris.
It's only very short.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
What do you do? This person.
No, it's already on.
Oh, okay. When is this cruelest program of live animal exports going to be stopped? And if it can't be stopped, when is it going to be finally fixed? I am sick and tired of hearing it being stopped, then it started, and more cruelty happens again. What are you going to do about it? Luke and Rob and the Greens, please.
Well, I think everyone is appalled by the vision of animal cruelty, and I think most people would agree that it's absolutely disgusting. We have very stringent controls in place in relation to live animal exports, and you're all going to say that clearly the system has fallen short by virtue of the vision that we've seen on our televisions. That certainly appears to be the case. I am unaware as to whether the animals that were shown in the last series of videos or film were positively identified as Australian animals. They may have been, I'm not aware of that. But rest assured that the government is committed to ensuring that appropriate standards are made, that the treatment of our animals overseas is done in a humane way. And certainly we had Simon Crean on the television in his role post-Parliament was disgusted, despite his best efforts and the best efforts that have been put in place. It clearly has fallen short, but certainly something that we'll be looking at to ensure that behaviours in that field going forward are appropriate.
And just 2 more 1-minute responses. I think the question was put to Carol and to Rob.
Right, Senator Lee Rhiannon is working very closely to put forward a bill to stop live animal transport overseas altogether. It's got some plans in there to try to work with, with people to look at building up some people coming to Australia to look at the slaughter of animals here, if that is what is required. But really the Greens are wanting to stop live export completely.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I read the Telegraph today and it was called an economy killer for supporting the 6-week ban on the live cattle trade in, I think it was 2011. That was done for a reason of trying to get the supply chain sorted out. There is clearly problems with the supply chain, and I think the most recent example from Vietnam exposes that once again. So there is a problem, and it's not across, like, we can argue the morals of a live cattle trade, and there is a local business actually looking at how to beat the live cattle trade with fresh meat from Australia, slaughtered in Australia. He's working in the Saudi markets, but the economics in his view is comparable, and I think that would be a fantastic way to not necessarily put a moratorium on live cattle, but beat it with the economics. The other point I would make is the exposure that came up 5 years ago and has come up again has not come from government. It has come from not-for-profit organisations doing the audit role that government departments should be doing. Those organisations, I think, don't receive charitable status, and I think there should be consideration at some point about, or first of all, there should be recognition by government that their own systems aren't delivering for their own interests, and that some consideration about some completely independent oversight from the people with the support of some resourcing from government will probably be the best thing to risk manage the supply chain as best we can. And I think that's an issue for the next Parliament, is how can we support some of these organisations that are doing some good work exposing some pretty horrific incidents that even the cattle industry is pretty horrified by.
Just very briefly, I think it's not an Australian thing to be doing. We're all upset about that, but what it does do, it highlights that the local farmers and the Australian manufacturing is not supported. We need to support Australian businesses and manufacturers and do it here, wouldn't have that problem of the cruelty. We need to spend more money on the Australian companies and the Australian way and the farmers so that we do it all here if we need to.
Thank you very much. I do believe there are two more gentlemen that wanted to ask questions, but we have run out of time. I think everybody who, apart from those two who wanted to ask questions, had the opportunity. On behalf of the Residents Action Network, I want to sincerely thank Carol, Luke, Michael, Rob and John. Thank you so much for coming here. Some of them from Coffs Harbour, and in particular Carol, just out of hospital. We thank you sincerely, but I also would like to thank each and every one of you for coming here, for showing how concerned you are about your own community. And I think all of us are going to be in a much better position casting our votes on the 2nd of July because we were here tonight.